फूड एंड न्यूट्रिशन, ये ऐसे टर्म्स हैं जिनसे हम सब बहुत ही ज़्यादा फेमिलियर हैं और ये हमारी बॉडी के ग्रोथ में बहुत ही यूज़फुल है और हम कहीं ना कहीं इसे डेली बेसिस पे यूज़ भी करते हैं फॉर आवर ग्रोथ एंड डेवलपमेंट ऑफ आवर बॉडी। तो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं। फूड एंड न्यूट्रिशन। तो सबसे पहले हम बात करेंगे व्हाट आर न्यूट्रिएंट्स। ठीक है, सो न्यूट्रिएंट्स आर कंपाउंड्स इन फूड essential to life. So nutrients are nothing but the compounds which are present in our food which we eat on our daily basis for the life to exist, for our growth, for our health, which provides us energy and becoming the building blocks for repair and growth. और जो हमारे बॉडी के ग्रोथ के लिए, हमारे बॉडी के रिपेयर के लिए बहुत ही एसेंशियल है। सो दिस इज न्यूट्रिएंट। नेक्स्ट इज द न्यूट्रिशन. So the interaction of nutrients in the food. The interaction of nutrients in the food for maintenance, for growth, for reproduction and health of an organism. So for the health, for the development, for the growth, for the reproduction of an organism, जो भी चीज़ें useful हैं, that all comes under the nutrients. And these are the process. The nutrition is the process and nutrients are the compounds. So they are basically categorized into two types, macronutrients and micronutrients. So macronutrients are those nutrients which our body needs in larger amount, in large quantity and form the major part of our diet. हमारे डाइट का ये ज़्यादातर हिस्सा होता है. फॉर एग्जांपल हमारे कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स, हमारे प्रोटीन्स, फैट्स, ये हमारे मेजरली दे आर द पार्ट ऑफ आवर डाइट. सो दे कम्स अंडर द मैक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स. अब हम बात करेंगे माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स की. सो दोज न्यूट्रिएंट्स विच द बॉडी नीड्स इन स्मॉलर क्वांटिटी, इन स्मॉलर अमाउंट एंड फॉर्म्स द लेसर पार्ट ऑफ अ डाइट. और हमारे डाइट का ये इट्स नॉट अ मेजर पार्ट. कभी कभी हम इसका इस्तेमाल करते हैं, जैसे कि हमारे विटामिन्स और हमारे विटामिन्स एंड मिनरल्स. नेक्स्ट हम बात करेंगे कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स की. So they are formed by the molecules of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Carbohydrates, they provide us energy. They are organic in nature and they are made from the carbon. So carbohydrates are naturally occurring organic compounds which contain hydrogen and oxygen. They are found in our food and can be broken down to release energy. So ये एनर्जी रिलीज करता है. द फूड वी ईट इज ब्रोकन डाउन इनटू स्मॉलर पीसेस एंड रिलीजेस एनर्जी. नेक्स्ट हम बात करेंगे सैकराइड्स की. तो सैकराइड्स आर नथिंग बट दे आर द फॉर्म ऑफ कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स. सब स्मॉल यूनिट्स जो हैं सैकराइड्स की, दे फॉर्म टुगेदर, मतलब दे कम टुगेदर टू फॉर्म कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स. तो इसमें हम बात करेंगे मोनोसैकराइड की, पॉलीगोसैकराइड्स की एंड ओलिगोसैकराइड की. तो सबसे पहले हम बात करते हैं व्हाट आर मोनोसैकराइड्स. सो दे आर द सिंपलेस्ट फॉर्म ऑफ कार्बोहाइड्रेट. हम कह सकते हैं 1 यूनिट विच कैन नॉट बी ब्रोकन डाउन फर्दर. ठीक है, 1 यूनिट एंड कैन नॉट बी ब्रोकन डाउन फर्दर. फॉर एग्जाम्पल हमारे हो गए ग्लूकोज, फ्रुक्टोज एंड गैलेक्टोज. ग्लूकोज क्या होते हैं? दे आर द मेन सोर्स ऑफ एनर्जी इन द बॉडी. हमारी बॉडी में जो मेन सोर्स ऑफ एनर्जी हमें जो मिलता है वो ग्लूकोज से. Body take anything in the form of glucose. It converts into glucose and then it takes it and gives us energy. Next is the fructose, which is the fruit sugar which is present especially in the fruits. Galactose found in milk. Next is the oligosaccharides. When two units combine together of carbohydrates, when they combine together by a glycosidic bond, then oligosaccharides are formed. 2 units and it can be more than 2. ठीक है. So monosaccharides unit, it can be 2 or more than 2. They join together by a glycosidic bond to give us oligosaccharides. और इसके हमारे एग्जाम्पल हैं सुक्रोज, जो कि हमारा नॉर्मल शुगर है एंड इट इज़ मेड अप ऑफ ग्लूकोज एंड फ्रुक्टोज. नेक्स्ट हमारा है लैक्टोज विच इज़ मेड अप ऑफ ग्लूकोज एंड गैलेक्टोज. और हमारा थर्ड है माल्टोज, मेड अप ऑफ ग्लूकोज एंड अनदर कंपाउंड ऑफ ग्लूकोज, मीन्स टू ग्लूकोज combined together to form maltose, different compounds. नेक्स्ट हम बात करेंगे पॉलीसेकेराइड्स की. पॉलीसेकेराइड्स when more than, so polysaccharides are when more than 10 units of monosaccharides they join together through glycosidic bond, so polysaccharides are formed. Examples are starch made up of glucose, ठीक, glycogen also made up of glucose, cellulose which is also made up of glucose. So glycogen is found only in animals. Starch and cellulose they both are found in plants. The starch and cellulose they are for the process of storage, they store food, ठीक है, store. And cellulose are for cell walls. Cell walls are present in plants which are made up of cellulose. Next we'll talk about the proteins. So they are made up of molecules of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. Different amino acid units of amino acids they form together through a peptide bond or amide bond, or we can say linkage, to form protein. So protein they are basically nitrogenous organic compounds which have large molecules of one or more long chain amino acids joined together by peptide bond or amide linkage. So there are basically fibrous and globular proteins. So fibrous proteins are nothing but they are of fibrous, नाम से ही आप समझ सकते हैं फाइबर, तो it is of fiber shape, ठीक है. So the amino acids chains, they are chains of amino acids and they are held together, they are parallel to each other and held together to form fibrous protein. Example is the collagen present in our skin, myosin in our muscles and alpha keratin in our hair, skin and nails. So आप लोगों ने keratin treatment के बारे में सुना होगा, it's very common. Next is the globular protein. So they are the functional proteins, मतलब proteins having different functions playing, जैसे blood plasma protein. So in blood it act as a blood plasma proteins, hormones, insulin, then enzymes. So enzymes are the biocatalyst which increase the rate of a reaction, ठीक है. So they are nothing but the catalyst which increases the rate of reaction. So here's the definition of fibrous protein, that it is the amino acid chains run parallel and are held together. And for globular proteins, the peptide chains they are coiled around in spherical shape. So globular से आप you can imagine that is like shape of a glue. So also all enzymes are proteins but all proteins are not enzymes, ठीक. There are some proteins which also contain sulfur, but sulfur is not always present in proteins. Next हम बात करेंगे lipids की. Lipids are nothing but the fats made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygens. We also know that fats and our oils they are not soluble in water, they are insoluble in water. So next हम बात करेंगे the functions of lipids की functions के बारे में. Functions इसका ये provide energy, ठीक है, cell membrane, then hormones like testosterone and estrogen had different functions. Also it function is signal molecules in brain, send signal molecules in brain. So one more thing about the amino acid is that the amino acid are classified into two, essential and non-essential amino acids. The essential amino acids they are not formed in body में वो form नहीं होते हैं, और जो non essential amino acids हैं they are formed in the body में ही form होते हैं वो. बात करते हैं lipids की, fats के बारे में. Definition that they are the organic compounds which are insoluble in water. अब हम बात करेंगे बेसिक components of fats. फैट्स के बेसिक components के बारे में हम बात करेंगे. So the main component is the fatty acid. So glycerol, 1 unit of glycerol and 3 units of fatty acid they form triglyceride. 1 unit of glycerol and 3 unit is the fixed. 3 units of fatty acid forms triglyceride. सो यहाँ पे देख सकते हैं द फॉर्म इन विच फैट्स आर स्टोर्ड इन द बॉडी इज कॉल्ड ट्राइग्लिसराइड्स। तो ट्राइग्लिसराइड के फॉर्म में हमारा जो फैट है वो बॉडी में स्टोर होता है। इट इज़ मेड अप ऑफ 3 यूनिट्स ऑफ फैटी एसिड्स। 3 यूनिट्स फैटी एसिड्स होने चाहिए, 1 यूनिट ऑफ ग्लिसरॉल। अब हम बात करेंगे डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ फैट। ठीक है, तो फैटी एसिड्स they are classified into two, saturated and unsaturated. The saturated fatty acid is formed when there is a single bond between the carbon molecules, and the unsaturated fatty acid there is double bonds. There is no concept of triple bond in fatty acid. And this unsaturated fatty acid, it is divided into two, monounsaturated called as MUFA and polyunsaturated called as PUFA. Okay, so next we'll talk about monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fatty acid. तो अभी मैंने बताया मोनो में एक डबल, मोनो में 1 double bond, there is 1 double bond, and polyunsaturated there are more than 1 double bonds. So most of the time the saturated fats they are solid and they are obtained from animal sources. ठीक है, इस बात को याद रखिएगा. For example जैसे हमारा घी, चीज़, ghee, cream, butter which we eat, it all comes from animal sources. And the plant sources, like from coconut oil. From plant sources we get coconut oil, which is a saturated fat. So unsaturated की अगर हम बात करें तो मोनो अनसेचुरेटेड फैटी एसिड की हम बात करते हैं. उसके एग्जांपल्स हैं ऑलिव ऑयल, सीसम ऑयल विच इज़ और तिल का तेल, एंड एवोकाडोज काइंड ऑफ फ्रूट. पॉली अनसेचुरेटेड के एग्जांपल हैं हमारे वॉलनट्स, सोयाबीन ऑयल एंड फिश. और बहुत सारे एग्जांपल हैं, मैंने आपको इतना दिखाया. अब हम बात करेंगे ट्रांस फैट की. सो ट्रांस फैट दे आर आर्टिफिशियली मैन्युफैक्चर्ड इन आवर इंडस्ट्रीज़. इसमें क्या होता है कि इनिशियली देयर इज़ अ अनसेचुरेटेड फैटी एसिड जिसे हम ब्रेक करते हैं इस फॉर्म में, एंड वी join hydrogen to each carbon molecule and form this compound. This is a partially industrial hydrogenation. ठीक है, it is nothing but partially industrial hydrogenation. मैं आपको एक और बात बता दूं कि हमारा जो ट्रांस फैट है ये बहुत ही हार्मफुल माना जाता है हमारी बॉडी के लिए, स्पेशली फॉर आवर हार्ट. उसके बाद जो सेकेंड नंबर पे है इज़ दी सैचुरेटेड वन, देन इट्स दी मूफा, and last is the PUFA. So PUFA is considered as the safest one and trans fat is the damaging factor for our body. Next हम बात करेंगे एक क्वेश्चन की. आप सब देख सकते हैं तो मैं क्वेश्चन रीड कर देती हूँ आपके लिए. अ कंपनी मार्केटिंग फूड प्रोडक्ट्स advertises that its items do not contain trans fat. So what does this campaign signify to the customer? What does this signify to the customer? There is no trans fat. So there are 3 options. The food products are not made out of hydrogenated oils. ट्रांस फैट नहीं है और आपको बताना है कि ये क्या सिग्निफाई कर रहा है. तो पहला ऑप्शन है द फूड प्रोडक्ट्स आर नॉट मेड आउट ऑफ हाइड्रोजनेटेड ऑयल. तो ये बिल्कुल सही है, उसमें ट्रांस फैट नहीं है, मतलब नो हाइड्रोजनेटेड ऑयल. इट इज़ करेक्ट. सेकेंड, द फूड प्रोडक्ट्स आर नॉट मेड आउट ऑफ एनिमल फैट्स और ऑयल्स. सो इन दिस वी आर नॉट श्योर कि that if there is no trans fat then they're not made out of animal fats or oil. So this option is not correct. Third is the oils used are not likely to damage the cardiovascular health of the consumer. So our trans fat it affects our cardiovascular health. So third is also correct, that if there is no trans fat then no damage to our cardiovascular health. Next हम आते हैं vitamins पे, which are our micronutrients. तो विटामिन्स की बात करते हैं. तो दे आर वाटर सॉल्युबल एंड फैट सॉल्युबल विटामिन्स. वाटर सॉल्युबल विटामिन्स आर विटामिन बी एंड विटामिन सी, एंड फैट सॉल्युबल विटामिन्स आर ए, डी, ई एंड के. सो दे आर माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स नीडेड इन स्मॉल क्वांटिटीज़ फॉर द प्रॉपर फंक्शनिंग ऑफ द ऑर्गेनिज्म. तो सबसे पहले हम बात करेंगे विटामिन ए की. सो विटामिन ए ऑल्सो कॉल्ड रेटिनॉल, and its deficiency causes night blindness. The sources which are related to vitamin A, they are the fish, liver oil, carrot, butter and milk. Next is the vitamin B1. Thiamine deficiency is the beriberi. The disease which is caused is beriberi. In this, there is loss of appetite and retarded growth. Sources are yeast, milk, green vegetables, and cereals. So they are used for the maintaining the health of the heart through carbohydrate metabolism. So they maintain the health of the heart through carbohydrate metabolism. Next is vitamin B2. Next is nothing but vitamin B2, which is riboflavin, and the disease is chillosis. In this, there is development of cracks at the corner of the mouth. Okay, the sources are similar to vitamin B1. Next is vitamin B3, which is known as niacin, and the disease formed is pellagra. In this, we'll talk about 4 Ds, which is diarrhea, dermatitis related to skin, and dementia, loss of memory, and then final stage is death. The sources are meat, poultry, and yeast. Next is the vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 is known as cyanocobalamin. Okay, so cyanocobalamin. Disease is the pernicious anemia. Anemia is due to the lack of hemoglobin in blood, and the sources are meat, fish, egg. There can be more sources. Vitamin C is nothing but ascorbic acid. Vitamin C is ascorbic acid, and the disease caused is scurvy. The symptoms are the bleeding gums, pain in joints and muscles, and the sources are citrus fruits, green leafy vegetables. Next, we'll talk about vitamin D, which is calciferol, and the disease caused is rickets. Especially, this is caused in children. In this, the shape of the bones is not formed properly and needed for absorption of calcium. So vitamin D, in this, calcium is absorbed, and due to lack of vitamin D, calcium is that urinated out from our body if there is lack of vitamin D. And there is also a disease which is present in the adults known as osteomalacia. Okay, so ricket is present in children and osteomalacia is present in the adults. Okay, so next what we are going to talk is the vitamin E. So vitamin E is known as tocopherol, and the deficiency is muscle weakness, and the best source for this is vegetable oil. Last is vitamin K, known as phylloquinone or phylloquinone. In this, there is increased clotting time. मतलब the time needed for a clot to form increases. मतलब there is more blood loss. Okay, so this was all about the vitamins. Next, one more vitamin B6. This is pyridoxine, known as pyridoxine, and the disease caused is convulsions. CONVULSIONS. Next, there is another question. मैं पढ़ देती हूँ आपके लिए. Non-function of lacrimal gland, which is related to tear, मतलब with the eyes, is an important symptom of deficiency of vitamin A. Yes, it is correct. Second is the deficiency of vitamin B1 can lead to indigestion and heart enlargement. Yes, अभी हमने पढ़ा. Vitamin C deficiency can lead to pain in the muscles. This is also right. ना हमने बात की. Then deficiency of vitamin D causes increased loss of calcium ion in urine. ये भी सही है. Next हम बात करेंगे minerals की. ठीक है. So it is also classified into macro minerals and micro minerals. So macro minerals are the sodium, the calcium, chlorine, magnesium, sulfur, potassium and phosphorus. तो चलिए एक एक करके सबके बारे में बात करते हैं. तो सोडियम इज नीडेड फॉर बैलेंस ऑफ फ्लूइड इन द बॉडी एंड मसल मूवमेंट, एंड इट डिफिशियंसी कॉजेज डिहाइड्रेशन एंड वीकनेस. नेक्स्ट, क्लोरीन it is also needed for fluid balance, and its deficiency also causes dehydration and weakness. Next is the calcium, which is associated with bones and muscles, and its deficiency causes brittle bones and bad muscle movement. Next is magnesium. It causes poor muscle coordination. Sulfur, we know that it is a part of protein but not always, so its deficiency causes like protein deficiency. Potassium, muscle weakness. And in phosphorus there is bad teeth and weaker bones. So अब हम बात करेंगे माइक्रो मिनरल्स के बारे में. सो दे आर यूज इन लेसर अमाउंट. सो एज कम्पेयर टू macro minerals, they are used in lesser amount. So first is the copper. It leads to low white blood cell count, lack of copper. Iron leads to iron deficiency will lead to iron deficiency anemia, because iron is present in hemoglobin, so it will lead to iron deficiency anemia. Zinc, it will lead to weak immunity, which leads to diarrhea, hair loss, etc. Fluorine, it maintains the health of teeth and it prevents tooth decay. Last is the iodine, which leads to deficiency of thyroid hormone. So in thyroid, iodine की कमी से होता है, so it leads to deficiency of thyroid hormones. So this was all about this section. और अगर आपको और डिटेल में पढ़ना हो तो आप NCERT पढ़ सकते हैं, क्लास 6 की चैप्टर 2. So I hope आपको अच्छा लगा होगा.